it's not about fundamentally improving what you're doing. It's about micro improvements, incremental improvements, because you're not perfect at every minute of the day.
Welcome to the Tech Savvy Recruiter, the podcast for recruitment and staffing agency owners keen to explore the tech innovations reshaping our industry. I'm Andrew Roger from recMate.
And I'm Belinda Kerr from Recruitment Garage, and together we're your hosts, bringing you a stellar lineup of tech experts ready to help you understand and, more importantly, benefit from the increasing array of tech available to you today.
Now, Belinda, we're going to be chatting about customer experience in recruitment. I know it's one of your favourite topics and mine.
Yep.
So customer experience, candidate experience, client experience, whatever experience you want to talk about, but there is often one forgotten, which is employee experience. So our recruiters, our consultants, our teammates behind in the back office, all form part of an amazing web of delivering best in class, best in world services to our customers outside of our business. So unfortunately, sometimes those employees do get forgotten in that customer experience triangle, but we certainly love to talk about them as well.
Yeah.
Now, there was a great quote that I saw last week, and I knew part of it, so it was really timely that I saw the full thing.
Yeah.
And it is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So I think that's really pertinent to our industry because, unfortunately, oftentimes we don't leave a lot of people feeling the best way that we possibly could. And in my time, certainly seen a number of agencies where that apply now button on their website is the last brand experience that candidate gets, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not 100% their fault. It's maybe they don't have the right systems or processes behind them to support them, particularly with large volume recruitment that you're getting several hundred applicants in for that one job.
Yes.
And I think that there was another quote. It was by Maya Angelou, who was a civil rights activist, poet, and writer in the US. And she also had one that really rung a bell for me, and it was do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better, which I think resonates a lot with what I know you definitely coach your clients and I coach my clients around is, when you see the light and you can do those incremental changes, you find that, okay, well, we actually do need to do a little bit more and then a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah, and the magic in that is the incremental changes, isn't it? It doesn't have to be some big overwhelming thing, mammoth task you have to do at once.
No, because I think some people get that overwhelmed feeling about that. So,
yes, indeed.
Just start. So make that resolution. Don't wait till next month. Do it this month, okay? Now, but before we dive into this further, BK, because you and I could jump into this really quickly, it just so happens, and people might be wondering who that guy is, that we have a very special guest with us today who is an expert in customer experience and recruitment. He runs his own tech business as well, which helps thousands of recruiters and candidates and clients get better experiences for each party. Now, who is this mystery candidate, I hear you ask? Well, it's the one and only Justin Hillier. Now, for our viewers who don't know Justin Hillier, welcome from the rock under which you've just climbed out, because everyone should probably know Justin by now. He's prolific on every channel that you, as a recruiter, belong to. If you haven't seen him on LinkedIn, you haven't been into LinkedIn recently, right? So, but hey, Justin, do you mind doing a pretty quick little intro about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as saying expert, passionate perhaps, most definitely. I've been in recruitment for Belinda, we were saying this before, 22, 23 years. Don't like to admit that so much anymore. It just feels like it's half my life. I've been in recruitment now. Started this business, Recruiter Insider, about 7 years ago, ironically on the back of a really crappy experience with a recruiter. So I wanted to fix the candidate and client experience and the way that consultants approached it. Had this literally light bulb cliche moment, designed the platform in my head in about 20 to 30 seconds. And 7 years later, we've built this behemoth of a platform that does everything from the candidate, client and employee feedback and their experience within the business as well to help them. And you guys nailed it. Improve. And it's not about fundamentally improving what you're doing. It's about micro improvements, incremental improvements, because you're not perfect at every minute of the day. So that's what we measure. That's what we show to everyone. And it's quite clear what on the dashboards what they need to fix and what they're doing well, and they go about fixing and improving and providing a better candidate experience and client experience and being better recruiters at the same time.
Yeah, so looking forward to digging into this conversation because it's something that I hear all the time. You know, like I was catching up with Sophie Robertson the other day. We had a session with her and we were talking about ghosting, and you know, I think all of these things, they don't start with ghosting; they start with the but it starts with the experience before. And so if we can get data and insights that help us stop that, that's awesome. So, all right. So Justin, you have obviously got a depth of knowledge and experience in the recruitment space and then the tech and then in this whole sort of data sector as well, especially around best practice. So absolutely looking forward to chatting with you today. So we've got a few questions.
Okay.
We'll try and pull you up if we can every now and then, give you a hard one, but I think you'll be well positioned to answer all of this and more. So pick your brain. So first up, I was just curious to know what your take on this. How has the approach to improving candidate and client experience in the recruitment industry evolved over the past decade?
Well, you're going to get the honest insight from me. It hasn't.
And honesty is the best policy.
That's honestly the sad fact. It hasn't evolved a great deal. If we're talking about, and I'm looking at the terminology of the word evolve, that there's been a fundamental shift. And there hasn't really been a fundamental shift. What I saw 7.5 years ago, when I had this idea for Recruiter Insider, is an approach of agencies only asking the candidates and clients that they place for feedback. So they're asking people who fundamentally are incredibly happy with you because you've got the ultimate outcome for them. So you're only asking people that are only ever going to provide you the best feedback at all. So you're manipulating that outcome, but you're ticking a box from your side. We're collecting feedback. But it's kind of like asking your husband or wife on your wedding night whether they love you or not. You're not getting any other answer than yes. And if you do, then you've just spent a whole lot of money and time doing something that you probably should have thought about more. So there's still agencies on that path. They're still only asking for feedback from the people that they place. So they're ticking a box on their side. Unfortunately, they're not ticking a box for their candidates and clients because you only place, let's call it 5% of all the people that you engage with. So does that mean the other 95%, their feedback, their thoughts, their insight, their experience with you and your brand doesn't matter? So to say that it's evolved over the last 10 years, I think we're still in if we look at the early adopters, the advocates, or the bulk that then come on with that graph that goes up like this. Can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. I think we're very much still in the early adoption stage of understanding, measuring the entirety of the hiring process actually has an impact on outcomes. And we've got the data to show quite significantly that it does.
So is the place, Justin, that it needs to evolve, I was going to say involve, the place that needs to evolve is going out, like you suggested, out beyond the candidates and clients that you've placed to people that you haven't. Is that where you're suggesting
Correct.
It needs
to evolve?
Yeah,
so starting at the very beginning of the process, those who you're interviewing, those who you're putting forward to clients, we measure different steps of the process. So measuring the entirety of the hiring process from first engagement at that interview through to sending them forward, what that experience is also like with the client. I've often said, and I said this before I even started this business, wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall in the candidate-client interview to know what's going on? How much better would we be if we knew exactly what conversation was had? So we get that insight for the agency, but we also go to post-placement because we're looking at expectation versus reality then. What's been pitched through the hiring process to now, what is actually reality once the candidate starts? Does the job line up? Does the culture line up of what was pitched? Are you welcome to the business? That whole onboarding phase. So understanding all of that and the impact measuring the whole hiring process has on outcomes is quite significant. So, yeah, we need to step away from just going.
So, Justin,
Sorry, please.
Sorry, pardon me. I was just going to ask you, do you think it's more...
We need to step away from just asking the people who are just going to give us positive feedback. We're giving ourselves a pat on the back. We feel good about ourselves, but the reality is it doesn't actually add value to your business.
So my question is, do you think it's because people, they don't know what they don't know, so they perhaps don't think it's important, or is it they don't know how to go about collecting this information, or maybe it's both?
Maybe there's a third option. They don't want to know.
Maybe there's a third option. They don't want it. Okay.
Yeah. So
which is crazy.
it's
Which is crazy.
It's crazy because we're in a service business. We should be measuring our service, and we're only as good as our reputation and the experience that people have with us as a service industry. So to only be asking the people and understanding that, hey, we're awesome because the people that we put into a job are really happy with us, but the other 95% we don't want to know about or care about, it's manipulation. So the value of that also means that you can't do much with it. You can't improve your business because you don't know what's going wrong. So they're ticking a box, absolutely, collecting feedback, but there's no depth or substance to it.
But also you've got, out of those people that don't, it might just be wrong place, wrong time for those people, and next time they might be a candidate. So, it's not like they're never going to be, it's never going to be a good idea to find out what they're thinking.
I think you should be asking everyone.
I think that.
Sorry, go, Andrew.
And I think that bucket that we often forget about is, I think the bucket that we often forget about is the internal employee as well. There was a Gallup study that produced an outcome that the study showed that those that have engaged workers are 17% more productive and have 21% higher profitability. Now,
21%? That's
21%.
huge.
Wow. So if there's not an ROI in there, it's dangerous not to have engaged workers, right? So, so that's your internal staff, and then, as you were saying, Justin, find out what the feedback is. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily do anything about it. No, we're not encouraging you to do nothing, right?
Yeah.
But burying your head in the sand, we're not emus or ostriches, right? I can't remember.
It's not a solution,
but we're not. No, not for a high performing team. And you always want to. Well, I think most businesses want to think that they're always evolving, always doing that a little much better each year, which often leads to greater productivity and profitability. And having zero landscape of understanding of how you are treating your internal workers / contractors / candidates / clients or invoice payers, let's call them, it's just ludicrous. Particularly with the systems that we've got available to us now. Once a few moons ago, we'll get to a question I've got for you about that one, but there's just fewer and fewer examples of why we can't do this stuff now, apart from I don't really want to know.
It's interesting to Justin's point about them not wanting to know. I did a similar thing recently for my business, and I have to say, before I did it, I was like, I was a bit nervous what was going to come back. But the reality is I got so much. I know, it's just I don't know, maybe it's imposter syndrome, I don't know. But
it's a bit of that, yeah.
Probably, but when I got the feedback, there was two things. One, people were really, really happy to help me out and let me know, because I gave them the space to let me know what's and all. And so that was the first thing. And they were really, really happy to help out. And what they did talk about was incredibly valuable to me, that was just completely out of my view. So once I did it, I was really happy. But it can be a bit daunting before you go in and pull back that veil.
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually started collecting.
I think that fear of the unknown, right?
Yeah, we started collecting employee feedback, so the agency being able to collect feedback from their own staff a few months ago. And I've had a couple of agency owners turn around to me and go, look, as much as the feedback was great to collect, there are actually things that we didn't realize our staff didn't know. They didn't know we offered particular training development or particular holiday type leave, or there are numerous things that popped up as like, well, we thought as the business owner that we communicated this stuff or it was readily known. Not. So it's interesting that the communication side is just a simple, easy improvement. And I talk, so sport's a great analogy to business. I always find, and you look at high performing teams in the sporting arena, and they're not looking to fundamentally improve by 50%, 20%. They're focusing on 1%. Little things that each individual and as a team, they can incrementally improve 1% here and there. And if everyone does that, you've got this collective improvement that far outweighs trying to focus improving one thing by 10%. So if you take that to the business world and you have every employee trying to improve something by 1%, be it the candidate experience, particular stage of the process, something internally with their colleagues, all of a sudden you're not improving something by 10%, you're improving the business exponentially.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, it's amazing. That little 1% every day rings a lot of bells
Yeah,
for me.
but you need the feedback to know
just do
what it
something a
is
bit
that you need
different,
to
a little bit
improve.
better, a little bit stronger. You have to focus on that. Yeah, you do. I think that might actually, I think it was in Atomic Habits by James Clear. He has that
great
theory
book.
about that 1% every day, and it just compounds so quickly that those little change. But to your point, Justin, you've got to understand what you should be focusing on, what's important to you, your workers, be it an external contractor or an internal staff member. You'll be surprised, I think. Well, sort of a lot of my clients get a surprise saying, that I didn't think they'd like that thing, or I really thought they would like that thing we're offering, but nobody uses it.
Or we thought we were really good at this, but hey, it turns out we're not.
Yes. No, that's it.
Sometimes we're just too close to our own stuff, aren't we, to be able to see it?
Yeah.
It's hard. I find it if I'm writing anything, it's very difficult to pick up on things. Give it to somebody else, they'll see those errors or can make some really good improvements quite quickly. It's hard to mark your own work sometimes. We touched on a little bit, Justin, around things that are making it perhaps a little bit easier to help. So I want to focus a little bit on technology and how it has evolved over the last period of time, particularly the last sort of 10 years that you've been in this field. And just wanted to hear your thoughts around how it has transformed, if it has transformed yet, the way that we manage, candidate, client, internal employee experiences.
Well, technology, geez, it's certainly evolved. We can go into the whole AI conversation, but let's not do that. Because by the time we finish this conversation, AI's evolved.
17 minutes or something like
before
that.
AI's come up. Yeah. By the time we finish this sentence, AI's evolved again, right? So it's just not even worth going there. But yeah, look, ATSs have certainly evolved over the last 10 years. They were nothing more when I first started in recruitment, a glorified spreadsheet on a screen. Now, and most of the time it was just a spreadsheet that you used on a screen. I remember Excel was probably one of the first I started using. Unfortunately, there's still recruiters today who will use a job ad or a bullhorn or whatever else is in the market and an Excel spreadsheet. I often say to agencies, you've got 3 ATSs in your business, but there's only one you know about. Because there's the Excel spreadsheet that a consultant's using, a bit of paper or a whiteboard or their head, for God's sake, that they'll try and remember everything. So it's certainly evolved to help us.
And the bottom drawer, don't forget the bottom
drawer. Yeah, there's a bit of paper in the drawer that we're hiding from the manager.
Bottom drawer.
So it's definitely evolved to help us manage the hiring process and the storing of data and everything, which has brought a lot of risks with that at the same time. But there's a whole lot of tech out there now that can simplify just about every single part of the process. And, whether that's through automation or whether that's through improved experience or collecting more information to make us able to make better decisions, you think of something, there's a bit of tech out there for it. That's good and bad because you can go, I think there is a point where you can go too much and you start to dilute the effectiveness of, everything that you're using. But a balanced approach, I do think I don't know why people are scared of a tech stack, or I saw another phrase last week, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But I don't think you should be afraid of technology in your business because that's actually the world we live in today. You actually need tech to be better. It's not there to replace you. It's to make you better at what you do. And be that the ATS or something like what we do of measuring what you do, the qualitative aspects, it's just there to help you improve. So if it makes your job faster, if it makes your job easier, I'd be doubling down on tech if I was an agency owner or I was stunned how much tech we've got in our business. I looked at it a few weeks ago. Someone asked me, I'm like, I think we use about 4 or 5 things. Turned out it was about 12. And I looked at, can I live without any of them? No. I actually need more.
Yeah.
I want to not do some things and get tech to do it for me instead. I think
you're right. It's definitely an enabler if set up. Yeah, I think those couple of things that resonated there was, do that tech audit, what you're using now. There's often a gap of what you've got signed up in a lot of agencies, like your personal subscriptions to do different maybe streaming services, etc. If you're not using one of them, just cut it off. But do that annual checkup with yourself around what's the team doing, how they're doing it, and why are we doing that manually, where we can leverage technology there. It's definitely not to replace the recruiter; it's to enable the recruiter to do human things, right? So There's a great book I've just finished called Buy Back Your Time by Daniel Martell. And his philosophy is don't do the stuff that you shouldn't be doing. Get somebody else or a technology to help you with that.
Yeah, the
invest
who, not
in
how.
your time. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Another great book. I think I've just got that on the shelf to read next, actually.
That's book by Dan Sullivan. Very good. Who, not how. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Very good book.
So, and there's, I think, fewer reasons, particularly in this field, that agency owners have to keep their head buried in the sand, as we talked about before, right? It's very quick and easy to get stuff set up. I mean, I think I know how long it takes you guys to set a customer up, but you can probably tell us now how long, on average, if we came to you tomorrow, just say as a team of 20 recruiters, what's the turnaround time there once we've signed contract with you, Justin?
An hour training and about 5 to 10 minutes to actually do the technical configuration. That's it. Done.
Okay.
So and that's the
zero lag. So if somebody...
Oh, I've signed clients on a Wednesday and gone live on the Friday, just matching up diaries, etc. But literally, it's a training session, and then the technical side of things. And I think this is kind of the spot that a lot of agencies get there, where they get stuck, is thinking that every bit of tech is going to be just as bad as the last bit of tech they implemented, which they had a nightmare with. It's not the case. There's some really simple plug and play solutions out there, and you should be looking for solutions that have the most minimal impact on implementation. Your team might need training. That's fine. They're going to constantly need training on any tech that they've got. Nothing is set and forget. So you're always going to need that aspect. But from a technical perspective, you want it to be as plug and play, 10, 15, 20-minute configuration setting, up and running, away you go. If the tech that you're looking at can't do that, then they're not actually, I would dare say, evolved enough to be in that position to enable that for you as well, which then brings other challenges moving forward potentially. Not to say everything's going to be like that. Things like payroll systems, they take weeks to set up. They're funky. And they're incredibly complicated and technical, and you need to get it right. Whereas something like us, or a reference checking system, or whatever it might be, they should be plug and play.
Yeah, I was just going to say a bit of a change of theme here. I'd be keen to know what you've found from the candidate expectation perspective. What is the data telling us that are the key expectations of these guys today? Do you have insights into that? So when they're engaging with recruitment agencies, what's the data telling us that they want, they don't want, their experiences?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I did this research, it was about six to 7 odd years ago, about what their expectations were at the time. And that's what we still measure today. And we see that impact placement outcome greatly affected when you don't get these elements right. Probably, and unsurprisingly, the one thing that they still want the most of is communication. I know it's a shock. They want to be communicated with. They want to know what's going on. When we have a poor experience, a low scoring review that comes through, 90+% of the time, the reason for that is the consultant didn't get back to the candidate. That's it. Nothing else. They actually haven't got much else to complain about. So that communication and, the cliche, no news is still news, still rings true. But in terms of what is probably the most underperforming, in fact, it is the worst performing question on our platform, it has been, we've got 120 questions that are measured throughout the hiring process, post-placement, differentiated by work type. But there's one question for 6 years that has consistently been the worst performing question. Every single consultant, every single agency, I tell them at the start, you're not going to do well in this question. Not to jinx them, but to get them to focus on it. And that's explaining the interview process and timeframes to a candidate. They just don't get it right. It is by far and away
Interesting.
the beacon. They either don't, I think there's probably a few things. We haven't been able to nail it because everyone's slightly different, but they either don't share the information with the candidate because they don't think it's important, or they forget and they run out of time. They don't collect it from the client at the beginning, which is kind of crazy, which means they're not collecting a decent job brief. Or they kind of are wishy-washy with how they do it and tell them, I'll get back to you next week. There's going to be something happening. It's half information. But so that is consistently the worst performing aspect. And if you think about it from a candidate perspective, I've got 3 jobs I'm interviewing for. 2 of them I know what's going to happen next. Yours I don't. which ones am I going to more likely lean into and be interested in than the one that I don't know whether it's
That's
starting
such a good point.
next month or next year or whatever it might be.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Tech Savvy Recruiter. If you like to stay up to date with the latest recruitment trends and insights, make sure that you remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And also, if you'd like to speak to Andrew about turning your tech stack into your secret weapon, or myself around creating an agency that delivers you more money, more meaning, and more freedom, we'd absolutely love to chat. Reach out to us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support. We look forward to seeing you next time.